Next on a special edition of Currents News, the First Amendment, Catholics taking a stand for the freedom at the foundation of this country.
We never wanted to go to court, but we were forced to.
Lawsuit battles, a look into cases taken to the highest court in the land, all in the name of religious liberty.
Because it was such a narrow decision, we'll be back in the courts again.
Then beyond our borders, a different type of persecution, Christians fighting for their lives, what Americans can do to help. The fight for freedom never over. What's at stake if we lose it? The news starts right now. Welcome to this special edition of Currents News as we focus on the fight for the First Amendment. I'm Emily Drewby. Religious Freedom Week happens every June, a solid week devoted to Catholics praying, reflecting, and promoting religious liberty. But the struggle for religious freedom continues every day here at home and around the world. Sometimes that fight leads all the way to the Supreme Court, like one Catholic adoption agency in Philadelphia that scored a major victory with the highest court in the land. A unanimous Supreme Court ruling being called a victory for religious freedom. SCOTUS ruling in favor of a Catholic foster care agency in Philadelphia, saying that the city refusing to work with Catholic social services because of a faith-based practice they follow violates religious liberty.
This is a victory for our beautiful city and for all of the children in our community who are counting on us to give them a fighting chance.
That's Tony Sims Bush. She was one of the plaintiffs, along with fellow foster care mom Sharonelle Fulton. Both are Catholic.
Their faith motivates all aspects of their work. Their approach to ministry results in stronger foster families, families who can continue to serve those in need.
The case started when Catholic Social Services contract with the city was frozen. The agency's religious objections prevented them from placing children with same-sex couples. The law sparked a battle that spanned years, making it all the way to the High Court, based off the idea that the city violated the First Amendment. Now the agency and two foster moms can finally rest easy. All 9 justices ruled in favor of Catholic Social Services, saying Philadelphia was forcing them to violate their religious beliefs. The opinion written by Chief Justice John Roberts, who said CSS just wants to continue serving children while staying true to their religious beliefs, not to impose those beliefs on others. The Becket Fund, which defends religious liberty, represented the moms and CSS in the case.
Every single Supreme Court justice said that religious freedom is not a second-class right. It's front and center, the bedrock of our Constitution and our freedom in America.
Some of the more conservative justices, like Samuel Alito, think the decision could have done more to solidify religious liberty. As part of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, Catholic Social Services has been serving the city for over 200 years. Now, because of this ruling, they can continue to do so. Philadelphia Archbishop Nelson Perez was thrilled with the outcome and had this to say about the ruling.
It is my personal hope that today's decision makes it abundantly clear that religious ministries cannot be forced to abandon their beliefs as the price for ministering to those in need.
Currents News also spoke to the former chairman of the United States Bishops Committee for Religious Liberty, Archbishop Thomas Wenski from the Archdiocese of Miami, about the narrow ruling and what it could mean for future legal actions.
This decision, narrow decision, is a victory. We have to take victories when we find them, but at the same time, because it was such a narrow decision, we'll be back in the courts again. And and we'll come back to the courts, and hopefully we will prevail, but we will prevail maybe with just a 5-4 decision. But I think we can't discount the positive effect of having this unanimous decision for religious freedom, because it helps build up memento. And we've won several cases on religious freedom over the past several years, and we want to keep that track record going.
The Little Sisters of the Poor also brought their religious freedom fight to the nation's highest court. The justices sided with them in their case against the HHS mandate that would have required them to provide contraception to their workers. Christine Persichetti spoke with Constance Veit, Director of Communications for the Little Sisters of the Poor, about the significance of their decision.
It was important to us because, it's very important to us to be able to live out our lives and practice our mission in conformity with the teachings of the Catholic Church. And, as many people inside and outside the church know, the Catholic Church has always taught that contraception is not acceptable. In addition, abortifacient drugs were also covered by this mandate, which means contraceptives which actually cause an abortion. And so we just couldn't, we couldn't abide by that. And we never wanted to go to court, but we were forced to because of the fines that were to be imposed on those who didn't follow the mandate. They would have been really mission ending for us. They would have amounted to millions and millions of dollars across all of our homes across the country. So there was no way that we could pay those fines. So therefore we were, forced to fight it in court.
Absolutely. And in case our viewers don't know, the Little Sisters serve the elderly poor in 30 countries around the world, including here in the Diocese of Brooklyn, where there are a couple of senior homes run by the Little Sisters. The nonprofit employs several hundred people. So how did your employees react to this case? It directly affects them.
Well, there's never been a strong reaction from our employees, which might surprise some people, but our health plans have never provided contraceptives or abortifacients. And so that is something that the people who come to work with us and choose our insurance are well aware of and accept. And I think that's as a perspective to the case, in that we believe that our country is large enough that people of many faiths, no faith, differing beliefs should be able to live and work together in peace and harmony. And our homes really show that because we have people from all over the world who work with us in a very peaceful atmosphere.
Nice. And now, so you won the case last year. Former President Donald Trump was a big supporter. But now with the new administration, is the fight really over?
Well, for all intents and purposes, the fight is over. We've won in the Supreme Court twice. And there's just a certain amount of housekeeping work that needs to be carried out by our attorneys at the lower court level. But, the victories that we won at the Supreme Court were definitive victories.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, you saw a lot of backlash and negative attention throughout the case, but you've said there were some positives as well. Talk about that.
Yes. Well, there's a silver lining to everything. And, we look at the pandemic, and I'm sure many people can see a silver lining in their lives for that. But for me personally, the silver lining in this court case was that, well, it made me go back to school and learn a lot more about religious freedom issues. But the biggest silver lining was that it just exposed me and our other sisters to so many people across the country, so many people of goodwill who might be of differing faiths. Some are fellow Catholics, but there are many people of other faiths as well who share our convictions about both religious liberty and respect for life and the inviolable dignity of human life. And so it was like a breath of fresh air at each stage to realize that people all over the country were supporting us.
Again, that was Constance Veit, Director of Communications for the Little Sisters of the Poor. Moving now to a case currently on the docket on Capitol Hill, the United States bishops are on a mission to stop a bill that could be taken up in the Senate. The bill, called the Equality Act, would enshrine legal protections for LGBTQ Americans, a worthy cause. But instead of respecting differences in beliefs about marriage and sexuality, the bishops believe it would discriminate against people of faith precisely because of those beliefs.
We're mainly concerned about religious freedom.
The ability to live out one's faith, that's what Ed Mickman says, is at risk if the Equality Act passes. He's the director of Safe Environment at the Archdiocese of New York. The act is supposed to stop discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, but critics, including U.S. bishops, argue it actually discriminates against Catholics.
They have good motives. They want to ban discrimination. That's all fine. But I think they don't realize the implications of a bill like this on religious organizations and religious people.
Ed says the impact would be great, especially since it eliminates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act as a potential defense. For example, if a Catholic hospital didn't want to do a gender reassignment surgery, faith wouldn't be an excuse to say no.
We would be forced to say things and do things that our faith really forbids us from doing. It's unprecedented in American history.
The implications of this broad act could be far-reaching. It would likely force hospitals to perform abortions and for employees to cover them. It could force women to share spaces like dorms or locker rooms with men. It could force schools to become co-ed and even allow men into women's prisons. A potential safety issue, explains Mary Hassan.
Tips the scales and says it's sort of winner take all, that these sexual orientation and gender identity categories are always going to trump anyone's religious belief.
As a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, she's an expert on issues affecting faith and women. She's very concerned about this act. The Equality Act has already passed in the House.
It is just a hugely important bill to defeat.
Critics and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops trying to do just that, reaching out to lawmakers, educating them on the negative effects it could have on the faithful. While there has been some talk of the Senate getting to this legislation during Pride Month, it has recently stalled. Catholics also gearing up for legal battles in case this act is passed. If you would like to voice your opposition to the Equality Act, just go to votervoice.net/USCCB/home. This special edition of Currents News continues after the break. We speak with groups working to free Christians from religious persecution in Iraq.
Christianity itself is under attack. Even though it's not very close to us, it's happening.
Plus, Pope Francis is appealing for Catholics in the Holy Land, what he said about the region. And New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan has a message on religious freedom. All that and more after the break.
There are now some big changes to the Tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
We Catholics want to work to protect our charitable institutions, our schools, hospitals, foster care services, so that we can continue to serve this great country we cherish as our earthly home. And we also want to pray for our fellow Christians in places like Nicaragua, Nigeria, and Iraq, who face aggressive persecution.
New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan highlighting both the importance and critical timing surrounding issues of religious freedom and Christian persecution. He prayed that Christians will have the courage to speak the truth with kindness and clarity, even in the face of adversity, a topic that Pope Francis has continuously called attention to. Currents News' Jessica Easthope talks with experts about one of the most hazardous countries for Christians, Iraq.
Around the globe, hundreds of millions of Christians live in places where persecution is considered extreme, where believing in Christ is dangerous, and few are more hostile than Iraq.
The Christians have been in Iraq since the Apostles, and Christians have suffered greatly in the last 20th century. And that's shown by the number of people that have gone and have left.
At the turn of the century, Christians made up nearly 13% of the population in Iraq at more than 1 million. Today, they're under 1%. Only 270,000 are left.
So there's only about a dozen families in Mosul.
Ed Clancy, the director of outreach for Aid to the Church in Need, says the United States' influence in Iraq caused a major shift.
The situation in Iraq was not good under Saddam Hussein, but the Christian population was surviving. Since then, it's been decimated, and this is because of the instability and other problems.
Christians and church leaders in Iraq were hopeful after Pope Francis's historic visit to the country in March. But Clancy says government control of economic and employment opportunities keep Christians down.
As their numbers decrease, they become more and more reliant on the government to support them and protect them, and the government is not.
Aid to the Church in Need has rebuilt thousands of Christian homes destroyed during the ISIS genocide, which ended in 2017. But terrorism and extremists are still the biggest threat to Iraqi Christians.
Or displaced or refugees.
Clancy says people can still return, but that first requires helping the Christians currently in Iraq stay there.
We have to support those dedicated few to make sure we as a country speak up for them, and we as Christians and as Catholics do the same.
If the threats Iraqi Christians face persist, more will leave, and language, liturgy, and history will be lost. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Pope Francis putting the spotlight on persecuted Christians in Iraq and the Middle East during this Sunday Angelus. The Holy Father making a special appeal on the day of prayer for peace in the Middle East. The pontiff also sent a letter to the Catholic patriarchs of the region. Francis is calling on Christians throughout the world to pray for peace in the region.
Invito tutti a implorare la misericordia di Dio e la pace su quella regione. Il Signore sostenga gli sforzi di quanti si adoperano per il dialogo e la convivenza fraterna nel Medio Oriente, dove la fede cristiana è nata ed è viva, nonostante le sofferenze.
In the Holy Father's letter, he recalled his apostolic visits to the Middle East, saying, "Ever since the beginning of my pontificate, I have sought to be near to your sufferings." Another attack on religious freedom, vandalism on churches, something the Diocese of Brooklyn has experienced all too often. At St. Adalbert's in Elmhurst, graffiti was spray painted on a number of walls, and in the latest incident, this statue of Our Lady of Angels destroyed. Many fear this is all part of a growing trend against the church.
We have statues outside, beautiful buildings, to show our faith and have a space for people to come and to worship together. And that is being taken from us. So again, we come to a big picture, how we can protect our freedom.
U.S. bishops hope that people who witnessed the crimes are brought to Christ. Still to come on this Currents News special edition, a look at Catholic social services, which are working overtime to help those hit hard by the pandemic. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Of people of faith continues, we took a deeper look at our Catholic social services as they work to help those hit hard by the pandemic. St. John's Bread and Life in Brooklyn is one of them, feeding tens of thousands of New Yorkers in need. Currents News' Jessica Easthope reports on their efforts in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nearly a year and a half into the pandemic, and the lines at St. John's Bread and Life still stretch the block.
Leroy? Yeah.
As people get back to normal, hoping to leave the crisis behind, Bread and Life is working overtime to make sure those in need are not forgotten.
Food unites us, and whether you are 90 years old or 30 years old, we all have to eat.
Over the last year, Bread and Life has fed 77,000 people, handed out 3 million meals, and sustained food pantries in 24 other communities across Brooklyn.
The thing I'm proudest of, we have never turned anyone away.
They've mastered the bread, but what about the life? Now, as the organization moves from crisis to recovery, the people who need Bread and Life for social services are also lining up.
They know that once they come to us, we're going to fight 100%.
St. John's Bread and Life is a one-stop shop, not only providing food, but help with benefits, rent assistance, and medical needs, hoping to enrich every aspect of life.
Through your work and through your clients, it makes a whole lot of difference. It makes your life worth living, actually, helping others.
The pandemic tested St. John's Bread and Life's mission and challenged its staff. They proved no one was above pitching in.
The first time I saw Sister Marie pushing a pallet jack, I knew we've done it. I saw our security staff in there packing bags. This is what it's all about. It's teamwork, because it could be any one of us on that line, and we all know that.
The operation has tripled, and now there's no turning back. St. John's Bread and Life is ready for anything. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The pandemic has wounded everyone in some way, so Pope Francis has called on the church to help heal the world, and Catholic Charities USA stepped up to serve. Christine Persichetti spoke with Anthony Granato, Vice President of Government Relations at Catholic Charities USA, about how the organization has been helping the millions whose jobs were affected.
Catholic Charities USA and the Catholic Charities Network around the country has been responding by providing the important wraparound services that people depend on if they're unemployed, whether that's behavioral counseling, whether that's addiction services, help finding a job, unemployment counseling, housing assistance, and nutrition. We've also been advocating with the federal government that they need to provide unemployment insurance and other supports in some of the federal CARES Act dollars and COVID relief funds that we've seen provided by Congress.
Yeah, and as a result of those job losses, the Census Bureau reported that nearly 1 in 5 renters are behind on their rent. That means 30 to 40 million people are at risk of losing their homes when the eviction moratorium is lifted. Talk to us a little bit about the work you've done to help keep people off the streets.
Yeah, right now we're currently advocating that the administration continue the eviction moratorium. We see that long-term housing issues are a very serious challenge for our country. Addressing homelessness and affordable housing is a signature priority for Catholic Charities USA. So not only in federal policy, but recently we teamed up with the Felician Sisters to establish what is known as the CCUSA Francis Fund to make grants available to all agencies for eviction mitigation at the community level. We're trying to keep people housed. As of now, we have 163 grants out to the charities agencies totaling worth about $1.6 million.
Wow.
So between direct advocacy for federal response and the work we're doing with religious sisters, we're trying to raise the issue of homelessness and affordable housing in this country.
That's great to hear. And to add insult to injury, wildfires raged through the country last year, causing even more displacement and hardship for people. Tell us about your agency's disaster relief efforts.
Yeah, Catholic Charities USA is a key partner with FEMA and the federal government in general to respond to disasters. We're a disaster responding agency. And we've seen this with the earthquakes in Puerto Rico, where we deployed people, staff, and volunteers. But with the COVID pandemic, we've also seen how that's impacted people at the local level. But this situation has been exacerbated by wildfires, by droughts, and we've had to respond, and we've done so by providing close to $1.5 million for states like California, Oregon, Washington. We've been providing PPE, personal protection equipment, face mask shields. We've been providing things like such as hand sanitizer and other essentials for people who are serving on the front lines. And we've donated over 60 pallets of diapers and baby food, and deploying people to assist where these wildfires and droughts are happening. So yeah, Catholic Charities is there. The Charities Network has stepped up to help people in need.
That was Anthony Granato, Vice President of Government Relations at Catholic Charities USA. Religious freedom advocates have released a charter declaring the right of every person around the world to freely believe or not believe. The charter, part of a 3-day summit released ahead of the International Religious Freedom Summit in Washington, D.C., features prominent religious leaders and religious freedom advocates, focusing on the vital need to protect liberties globally. And that is it for this special edition of Currents News. I'm Emily Drewby. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.